I had no idea that the original Frankenstein is so biblical. Adam and Eve, the creation of man in the image of God. Satan, powers, principalities, fallen angels, demons. And Mary Shelley even had some brutal things to say about how women are treated in Islam. This is not the Frankenstein that I thought I knew from Halloween and stuff. Real quick, my name is James Fink. I am a Christian. I write books to thrill both believers and skeptics, and all of the profits from my writing ministry go to our local church. I am reading 40 of the most influential books ever written for my 40th birthday. And book number 22 is Frankenstein. Now, I read the first 21 books in like 3 months, November, December, and January. And now I have stopped because all year I've been working on the release of Dear Judas, which is coming, I cannot wait, on September 10th. But I just went on vacation down to Myrtle Beach, and I read 2 more of the most influential books ever written. I'm going to be reviewing them both. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably have seen some of those 21 reviews. And normally what happens is I film like 5, 6, 7 minutes. I do my best to try and be pithy, film like 7 minutes, and then end up having to hack it down to present a review for social media that's maybe like 1.5 minutes to 3 minutes. But now I'm on YouTube, so I can do a full-length review here, and then I'll shorten this for social media. So when I think about Frankenstein, this covers kind of what I think about, like, you know, the monster with the bolts coming out of his neck and Halloween. But the first thing, and you might have known this, is that the monster's not even Frankenstein. The monster doesn't actually even have a name. It was the creator who is Frankenstein, Victor Frankenstein. That's really important because Mary Shelley, she didn't just write something about this lumbering green monster. This is it is a philosophical book about a man who creates life. And then what happens when the creator rejects his creation. The story is absolutely loaded with Christian imagery. Here's an example. At one point, the creature confronts Victor Frankenstein. He says this: "Remember that I am thy creature. I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel, whom thou drivest from joy for no misdeed." So Frankenstein creates life, but then, unlike God, who created Adam, when he creates life, he looks at it and is disgusted by it. He fully abandons it. The creature doesn't even have a name. The creature tries to understand who he is, why he exists. Listen to this, because he compares himself again to Adam. He says, "Like Adam, I was apparently united by no link to any other being in existence, but his state was far different than mine in every other respect." And he explains why. But since Adam came from the hands of God, he says, "A perfect creature, happy and prosperous, guarded by the special care of his creator." But the creature says, "I was wretched, helpless, and alone." That is an incredible contrast. Adam has a creator who loves him, who cares for him. It's the opposite for Frankenstein's creature. Then the creature starts thinking maybe he's more like Satan. He says, "Many times I considered Satan as the fitter emblem of my condition." Now he begins to witness everybody else enjoying love, happiness, family, and of course he becomes jealous. Listen to how the monster contrasts God's creation. He says, "God in pity made man beautiful and alluring after his own image," created in the image of God. "But my form is a filthy type of yours, more horrid even from the very resemblance." And then Satan had his companions, his fellow devils, to admire and encourage him, but I am solitary and abhorred. Powers, principalities, devils, demons. If you've read my stuff, you know that is a common theme. I mean, you know these books are written around this unseen spiritual battle. Here's my scripture, Ephesians 6. "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers." And you see that theme throughout Frankenstein. You know, one of the big things in my books is pulling back the curtain of what does the spiritual warfare look like today in regular life. But this thing is over 200 years old. So she talks powers and principalities, but then she takes a brutal shot at Islam. I want to make sure I get this quote right. So there's this subplot, and it's really like off to the side, but it's involving this woman named Safi. Her mother-in-law is a Christian Arab who's been seized, who's been enslaved by the Turks. Shelley tells us that Safi's mother had been born in freedom and, quote, here's a quote, spurned the bondage to which she was now reduced because she had been enslaved by Muslims. So she raises her daughter in Christianity. Shelley writes, this is gnarly. She instructed her in the tenets of her religion, of Christianity, and taught her to aspire to higher powers of intellect and an independence of spirit forbidden to the female followers of Muhammad. And it gets even stronger. By the way, this is 1816 that this is being written. It's incredible. And Safi's terrified of being forced to return to Asia, forced to return to the Muslims and being immured within the walls of a harem, and saying she would be restricted by, quote, infantile amusements, these women who are subjected by Muslims. Instead, she writes, the prospect of marrying a Christian and remaining in a country where women were allowed to take a rank in society was enchanting to her. Again, this is in Frankenstein. She's not subtle at all in her contrast between Christian Europe at the time and Muslim society. And hey, we're starting to see that here a couple hundred years later. People walking around Europe with sheets over their head with little eye holes in there. I've even seen it, not seen it personally, but even seen videos of it in my own country. That is crazy in 2026. Now, this is not an easy read by any means, because again, at least this one is the original classic text. This is a couple hundred years old. So it is beautiful. There is poetic imagery in there, but it's not an easy read. Here's an example, though, of this is one of my favorite lines that I had highlighted in the book. The wounded deer dragging its fainting limbs to some untrodden brake, there to gaze upon the arrow which had pierced it and to die, was but a type of me. Dang! Mary Shelley's writing was dark. And by the way, if you hear her actual life, I was reading about her actual life and I'm like, this might be darker than Frankenstein is. Now, one of the things that I have tried to do throughout my books is to end chapters on little mini cliffhangers because it draws the reader through the story, which is why you'll sometimes see reviews that are like, hey, I finished Dear Judas at 3 a.m. I stayed up all night. I finished it in a weekend, that kind of thing. Well, Mary Shelley, she does such a masterful job at putting those type of cliffhangers in there. Here's one that I wrote down. This foreshadowing. Here's an example. Little did I know that my happiness was about to be destroyed, and I would soon wish that I had never been born. That is just gnarly. What's going to happen, Mary? What's next? She does it constantly. You know something terrible is about to happen, but what is it? So just final thoughts. Pop culture has taken this book from 1816 and probably hasn't prepared you for what it is actually about. And like I said, I had no idea just how biblical this book is, but now I have a much better understanding about why we're still talking about Frankenstein here 200 plus years later. That is book number 22, I think. Let me know if you want to see more of these. Like I said, full reviews here on YouTube, and then I will do some shortened versions on my social media as I always do. 40 of the most influential books ever written through the eyes of a conservative Christian evangelical in 2026. And the next one that I also read on vacation is Fahrenheit 451. Wait till you hear what I have to say about this one. Because we got English teachers in 2026 talking about book bans because they can't give sexual content to their youth students and comparing it to Fahrenheit 451. I'll be back soon. Let me know in the comments if you want me to. I'm thinking about taking the 20 or whatever that I did on social media and putting them to some long format stuff so I can share them here.